folks, welcome back to Indaba Africa. This is Chris once again. Hello, folks. Oh, there we are. Hello, folks. Welcome back to Chris Wyatt Africa. This is Chris in Central Pennsylvania, coming to you live with continuing coverage of South Africa's 2021 municipal elections, what I consider the most consequential elections since 1994 in modern South African history. This is the election that matters probably more than any of them in the past. It's certainly consequential in the age of the Rona and other things going on. But today I have another guest, and my guest is the first from this party, the African Christian Democratic Party, a party that I hope to get on for some time. And here he is on incredibly short notice, probably also getting text messages while in church. And my apologies for that. They weren't for me. They were from people trying to coordinate for me. But my special guest today is none other than Ferlon from the African Christian Democratic Party. He's the leader of the party in the Western Cape. Sir, good day to you. Hoe gaan dit?
Baie goed, baie dankie. Good evening.
It's a pleasure to have you join us today. Listen, as I said, you're my first guest from your party. I've been able to host over time, and certainly during this election build-up, people from the Democratic Alliance, from the Freedom Front Plus, from even the UIM now, the Inkatha Freedom Party. Who else? I probably missed a few. UDM. And others. So this is our first chance to get someone from your party on here. And what better way to start with than a senior member of the party? I mean, listen, I'm not going to, it would take us an hour just to go through your impressive CV. You know, there's a lot here, a lot to unpack. You're a member of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament since 2014. I think you serve in the Committee for Education and Community Safety, which is both of those are critically important in South Africa, but especially in the Western Cape. You've been involved in government for a lot of time, doing an awful lot of roles going back quite a ways. And you've got quite interesting. I think you might actually be a minister as well, if I'm not mistaken. So with that information, can you kind of just let my audience know a little bit about who Ferlon is? Because I think a lot of people are not maybe familiar with you. Because honestly, the South African media doesn't go out of its way to promote or advertise or tell people your party even exists unless they're busy attacking you, claiming you're anti-homosexual or anti-this or anti-that. They never say what your party's about. So if you could tell us a little about Ferlon Christians first, and then we'll get into the election stuff.
Yeah, so my name is Ferlon Christians, as you said. I'm married. My wife is Debbie. I've got two wonderful sons, Marvin and Brandon. I've been involved in politics for a long, long time. And 2011, January, I joined the ACDP after fasting and praying, seeking God's face for 40 days on liquids. And I lost 26 kilograms. And then I got involved with the ACDP. I was involved with the Independent Democrats. They're no longer there. And I was in the early 90s when the National Party opened their doors for other colors. I then also joined the National Party in the early 90s. Also, if you're in South Africa, you're always involved in student politics, so it goes way back. My first public office, of course, was for the ACDP when I was a councillor in the city of Cape Town for 3 years. I served on safety and security, and as you said, I was then elected in the provincial parliament where I serve on community safety and also education. I'm also the leader of the ACDP in the Western Cape. I also have the privilege serving on the national executive of the ACDP. So I've been involved in politics. I'm also, like you said, ordained minister. I've studied theology, but I also studied political science later on. And yes, so that is all about myself. I'm very passionate about what I'm doing, and I enjoy being a member and also leader with the African Christian Democratic Party.
I think I should let for my viewing audience know, you may see his image shake periodically. That's the National Security Agency in collusion with South African intelligence services listening to this conversation. They're bugging his phone. So every time you see it shake, no, actually, I think he's got his phone on vibrate, and that's probably why it's doing that. Very strong vibrate. That's a very strong vibrate. That's like Sheldon Cooper. Man, that thing just vibrates right out of his pocket. But on a serious note, let me get to this because I have something from the chat, and I'll forget it, and it's kind of an out of the blue thing, so I'll definitely forget about it. But Erica asked, please ask your guest if he was in Parliament with Sherilyn Dudley. Does that sound familiar?
No, Sherilyn Dudley was in National Parliament, and I'm in the province, in the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. So we have, as you know, we have the National Parliament, Provincial Parliament, and local government. So I served, but we served for the ACDP at the same time are different spheres of government.
Okay. No, I'm familiar with the different levels. I honestly, I'll plead ignorance. I don't know Sherilyn Dudley, so my apologies there. So that's why I'll ask the question that one of my viewers asked. So here's the thing. You've served as a ward councillor in Cape Town, and this is an election in which a lot of people in the Western Cape are looking at gaining seats, oftentimes at the expense not of the African National Congress, because they don't have that many seats. They're only about a quarter or so of the what's on the council. It's actually, if anyone, if it's a winner take all, those seats are probably going to come from the Democratic Alliance. I had Jack Miller on from the Cape Independence Party recently, and he's all in on taking seats from the DA. He says they've got to be shown that they're not doing a good job and they need to be whittled down. What's the view of the African Christian Democratic Party in Western Cape? Are you focused on an election where you're talking about your potential for service delivery or honest government or faith and family? What's the platform? I have to be upfront with you, Ferlon. I fought 30 plus years against communists. I hate the phrase manifesto, so I call it party platform. So what's kind of the party platform there that you guys are campaigning under in the Western Cape to hopefully gain some ward council seats?
Yeah, there's, of course, we have the party has launched its manifesto a couple of weeks ago. And what is important is that we believe that as the ACDP, we have God-fearing, honest, capable councillors, candidates standing in the hordes. I believe that when it comes to the city of Cape Town, they don't have strong leadership. And that's why the ACDP present strong Christian leaders and we always tell our voters that we serve with a servant heart. So that's the difference between, being a politician and you being called to serve the people of the Western Cape and the city of Cape Town. So that, I believe, is a big difference between us and any other political party. For us, it's not a job. For us, it's a calling. And being a Christian political party, it's a calling for us. And Jesus came to serve, and that's why we believe we need to serve communities. So, like any other political party, you have your views on when it comes to transport. Safety, of course, is a big issue. And as you know, my CV, I've got more than 20 years experience when it comes to safety. And we always, when I speak, it's about service delivery, it's about safety of our people, getting our youth off the street. So we have a plan to get our youth off the street because now we sit with crime, but we must give the youngsters an opportunity to do something with their lives. And so we have projects and plans to skill our youth, to get mentorship programs in place, to work to get that sorted out. And then, of course, when it comes to housing is an enormous problem when it comes to the Western Cape and also the city of Cape Town. But you have the influx of people, something like 18 to 22,000 people coming to the Western Cape on a yearly basis. So you'll never be able to provide enough houses. So we always say it's national, provincial, and local government will have to sit down and see what we need to address this problem. Now, one of the problems that I have with the city of Cape Town, that the city of Cape Town has pockets of land available, pockets of land for housing and also economic activity. And we want to utilize that, to bring dignity and respect back to our people. The one problem that we also have is that we believe that ratepayers are not respected in the city of Cape Town. So one of the promises I made, if I am elected the mayor of Cape Town, we will reduce the rates because people, it's unaffordable for people to stay in Cape Town. So we must make it affordable. And I don't know if you saw, it's not a local government issue, it's a national issue, but we're also very strong when it comes to mandatory vaccines. And we made that part of our local government, agenda, saying that people must not be forced in the Western Cape, in Cape Town, to be vaccinated. So we say freedom of choice. and not forceful vaccination. So that is just in a nutshell, what the important issues. Of course, there's more, but I just thought that in brief, that is what I want to say.
No, that's a good start to it. There's a lot of questions there. It may take us some time, but not get to all those things. You talk about national, provincial, and local, and when we saw 4 years ago with the climate zealots running around and screaming, "Oh, climate change, Cape Town, day zero. There's no water because the climate's changed." When in reality, as I pointed out at the time, in written publications, in academic circles, and then since I've left active service, because you're limited to what you can say as a serving officer, you can't just say whatever you want, as Lieutenant Colonel Schiller has discovered in the U.S. Marine Corps recently. But I said the problem in Cape Town isn't climate change. That may be a contributing factor, but the reason Cape Town has no water, number one, the population is 5 times what it was a century ago, so there's 5 times as much individual human usage, plus there's more industrialization, more wineries, all of that consumes water more, so the water use is more than 5-fold higher. 35 to 45% of the water that's shipped from reservoirs to the city is lost through leaky pipes. It's lost completely, so that's a huge loss. Then you have the tragedy of the commons in places. I'm not beating up at people in the Cape Flats, but the truth, we know this, is there are communal taps there. People who wash cars, among other things, they make a couple bucks, a few rand washing cars. They leave the tap on, they walk away, the water runs. No one's paying for it, they don't care, so let it run. And then there's no brown water reuse policy at the time for Cape Town. So wastewater wasn't being filtered and reused to water lawns and things like that. And so all of that contributes. Now, here, all the reservoirs are at 100+% right now. They're full. There's lots of water in Cape Town. And all those other things still exist, and nobody's talking about it. The point I'm getting at with you, Ferlon, is that you can't fix that as a municipality. You can't fix it as a provincial government. You can't fix it as a national government. You all have to work together in sync in Cape Town to fix this issue. And that has never happened under the National Party, under the ANC in the Western Province, under the DA. No one has pulled this off, and it's not rocket science. I mean, we're not launching Captain Kirk into space here. We're just trying to get water to people. Would you agree with my assessment, or am I missing something?
No, I think you're spot on. You're spot on, and visiting, of course, now as the mayoral candidate for the city of Cape Town, you go to different communities and you speak to different people and so on. But for me, it's like the ACDP. We believe in reconciliation. We must work together to make this work. Too many times we play the blame game, pointing fingers. And the attitude should be, what can I do to solve the problem? What solution can I bring to the table in order to address these issues? I think that is so important, because with the DA government, they're blaming one another going on, and the ACDP is really a party that believes in reconciliation. How do we bring this beautiful country, this rainbow nation, how do we bring them together? And we believe we can do that. We believe with our attitude and our approach, we can bring everybody. Because you must remember, the one thing that I always tell our people is that South Africa, with our apartheid years, we have the white, the black, the colored, and Indian. Now, for me, it is most of our population in the country and also in Cape Town is mostly Christians. So in Cape Town, we have more than 80% of Christians in Cape Town. And what I always say, when you have that identity that goes further than race, identity to say that I'm Christ-like, that identity we must address, and don't look at the color of a person's skin. We need one another. If you are white, black, or colored, we need one another to have this country being successful. And when we come with this mindset, people is leaving the country because, as you know, corruption, bribery, and all of these things. So that's why I pointed out in the beginning, it starts with leadership. It starts with getting rid of corrupt leaders. And the ACDP is very strong on presenting leaders with integrity. So just to answer all of that is, we need to work together to make this happen and bring this country back to its former glory days.
Well, absolutely. South Africa certainly has an opportunity to be a glorious nation. It has the human capital, despite the abysmal Bantu-like education of the ANC. It certainly has the potential, the resources, both agricultural, mineral. It's all there. It's all there. And the institutions, if they're revitalized instead of used to pilfer, they could be quite valuable for South Africa. But let me just look. You talk about getting youth off the streets, so I'm going to make you an offer here. I can build you a sports complex for just 15 million rand. I can build it for you. I'm just saying, in case referring to the ANC's, unless it's in the Eastern Cape, $15 million soccer pitch with little aluminum stand. I can do it for 15 million. If you want something to get kids off streets, just let me a contract. And I'll get you a soccer stand for 15 million rand, or I can get you for 90 million rand softball pitches in Polokwane, because everybody's playing softball these days in South Africa. Not, but on a serious note, it's right there in the title of your party, and you just alluded to it: the African Christian Democratic Party. Now, does that mean that Jews and Muslims and others aren't welcome, or that your faith in Christ and God is the abiding principle that brings you together? Are other people welcome under the tent, or do you just focus on bringing Christians in the party? It's a fair question, given the name of your party.
No, it's very fair. And I'm asked that question almost every time. No, it's open to everybody. Let me tell you that we have many Jewish brothers and sisters that, that we know how we stand with Israel. So we do have other faiths joining the party. I think the important thing is that people know that this is a Christian party, that they have capable leaders, that they have God-fearing leaders. And, even irrespective of what faith you are in, we all want the same for the city of Cape Town. We all want the same for South Africa. Honest leaders, God-fearing leaders. And we share the same values. So many people come and join the ACDP that's not Christian because of our value system, so they can live with belonging to our party. So it's not closed to any other person. And like I said, one of my best friends is Muslim, and he will support us because he believes in the values that we drive. And of course, with a Christian party, at least you know where you stand. It's people with integrity. It's people that you can trust, because we are accountable to God first before we are accountable to man. So this gives the people at least assurance that when we get into council, when we get into taking over a ward, there will be no corruption, and we will not sweep anything under the carpet. So that, I think, is important, and people resonate with that.
Well, it's a great statement. And the reason I asked the question is not because I believe that. I mean, I asked the question of the Freedom Front Plus because the media portrays parties in a certain fashion, and your party is portrayed in certain fashions. That's why I asked it to give you an opportunity to address it. The Freedom Front Plus, I had a spokesman on there earlier today as a member of the Provincial Legislature up there, and that's Cobus Hofman. And I did the same thing with his party. I said, the media portrays you as an Afrikaner, Boer party only. Is that the truth, or do you actually have, and they do have broader outreach, just like you're talking about, you have broader outreach. I think it's important for people to hear that, because when the media pigeonholes parties and says they're this or they're that, they're this, they're that, then people believe it. They just read it, they hear it, they see it on a website, they read it on their mobile device, and they just believe it, even if it's not true. And I think it's important to bring that up. Now, you talked about public safety, and that's a real issue in the Western Cape. This is a tough one. The violence that we see in parts of Cape Town, particularly in the Cape Flats, is beyond horrific. We just saw 7 people wounded in a drive-by shooting at Mitchell Plains, and this was horrific. A 24-year-old is dead. A 5-year-old was shot. And a drive-by shooting. This is just, we've seen some of these really horrific cases in the Western Cape, like what happened to Hannah Cornelius and her best friend who was colored. That terrible story, because they came home from a club. They were friends, not boyfriend and girlfriend, but they were good friends. And he was going to ride a skateboard home at night. And she said, no, that's not safe. So she gave him a ride home in her Volkswagen, only to be accosted by these idiots who attacked her. And most of them were immigrants from other parts of the country, and South Africans, but immigrants. And they took and they bashed his head in with a boulder in a vineyard. And then they gang raped her for hours. And then she pled for her life, just, rape me if you have to, but don't kill me. And they smashed her head with a boulder, took the car, drove around, tried to kidnap other people and kill them while they're doing drugs and everything. This is really frightening. And that's just one isolated case. This one I just talked about. I've talked to Leonard Max. I've had him on the program. He's running for Freedom Front Plus, and he was a police officer for a long time. This is something that's really tough to get a handle on. It seems as if gangs and this culture of violence has really taken hold in parts of the Western Cape, not exclusively. It's in other parts of the country. But I mean, how do you tackle this? Is this something that local government can get its handle on? I think it's possible, but let me get your thoughts on it. And if the ACDP picks up more counselors, do you think you contribute to the fight against this sort of violence?
I want to tell you most definitely. I've been a law enforcement officer for 9 years in the 80s and 90s. And like I said, I worked in community safety and all over. For me, it is always about, and we had a mayoral debate the other night, and I said to all the candidates, you must involve communities. The Premier of the Western Cape, Alan Windy, has made available 1.4 billion rand for a safety plan. Now, you employ more law enforcement officers because you know that the local government have control over metro police and also law enforcement officers. Now, you can have as many as you want to, but the problems that you encounter in your communities. I've always said that we must look at our neighborhood watches, resource them, look at our community police forums. Their big job is to have awareness programs. So I believe that when you get involved in the community and you get the community involvement, because you must remember neighborhood watches, they do it voluntary. They walk the streets because they're concerned about the communities. So if we resource them properly, because you have very poor areas in Cape Town and very wealthy areas in Cape Town. So the wealthy areas have security and they have all the equipment. But if you come to your poorer areas, you do not have that. So I believe if you resource them and get some initiative going, then you can stem the violence and the crime in the poorer areas. But the important thing also, I think you should, is that the corruption within police. And that is a major issue that we're facing. I cannot understand that, guns still disappear out of police stations. Where does criminals get all the ammunition to shoot? So somehow there is a problem where they can have access to ammunition, where they have access to guns. And I still believe that there's a lot of corruption within the South African Police Service. So you'll have to start from the top. You'll have to speak to the Minister of Safety and Security. You'll have to get the Commissioner and work together to get rid of the rotten apples. And I still believe in law enforcement, you have the rotten apples. In the Metro Police, where dockets disappear, with criminals going to court, walk out of court scot-free. So I do not, because we don't have as a local government any authority over the criminal justice system. That's a national competency. But what you have control over, you must make sure that that is effective and that you can do the most of it. So yet again, I want to tell you, Chris, for me, it's about what is the solution? How do you solve the problem without blaming and working together the different spheres of government? But I really believe that if there's a political will, and there is a political will when it comes to the ACDP, we will stem crime and make a big dent in crime. Because, I want to see the day where our women, our children are safe on the streets, when people go to work, come safe home. So that is what I want to see. And I believe we can turn it around if you have the correct and proper leadership in place.
Folks, you're listening to Chris Wyatt Africa on the Indaba Africa channel, part of the Indaba Broadcasting Network, here on Sunday, the 17th of October. Wow, where does the time go? We are just 14 days away from South Africa's 2021 municipal elections. My special feature guest today is none other than Ferlon Christians from the African Christian Democratic Party. We're talking about the Western Cape, where he's the leader of the ACDP, and he's answering our questions, and quite transparently and refreshingly. It's nice to hear that from a politician. He's been in politics for a long time. And there's a lot of questions here that my audience are asking, one of which I want to get to in a second, but I think you're right about what you're talking about there. It is multifaceted, and of course, as I call South Africa's Ronnie Lamola, the Department of Injustice, it's certainly not a Department of Justice. We don't see people... We don't see people. Well, I've got more too. I've got Nkosazana Talon Bezuidenhout is the Minister of Irrational Governance and Non-Traditional Affairs. Anyways, yeah, it's and of course Ibrahim Patel is the Minister of No Trade. So what can you say? And of course Beckett Chile is the gangster in chief. We all know that. But anyway. And you can see why YouTube doesn't like me. Anyway, but seriously, it's multifaceted. I mean, if you equip the police, Metro, and SAPS, then you still got this issue between national competency with SAPS, South African Police Service, and the Metro Police. And the Metro Police cover Cape Town. You don't necessarily have those Metro Police in those other small municipalities. So that's two different competencies. And even if they work together and they're effective, if they are, let's pretend they are, if they capture criminals and they turn them over to the justice system, so few people get caught for crimes, so few people get charged with crimes, even fewer people get prosecuted, and almost nobody gets convicted of crimes. And when they get convicted, they get Shabir-itis. Oh, I'm dying. I have to go play golf now, So, I mean, it's an embarrassment for South Africa, and it undermines the rule of law and your ability at the local level to control it. But I think you're onto something there. From my point of view, is that resourcing is a key thing. That's a big issue. It needs to be done. The police are under-resourced. I mean, I've seen cops riding around in buckies that are falling apart.
Yeah.
It's just terrible. And they don't have them. They can't respond to rural areas. Real mess in other parts of the country. But let's talk very quickly about two things that are related to this issue. One of which is the taxi wars that are we're very famous for hearing that, of course, in KZN and in Gaberna or Port Elizabeth, Nelson Mandela Bay, with broad daylight assassinations with automatic weapons of taxi bosses and others, and no regard for humans and innocent civilians, just spraying AK-47, where those come from. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But between that, we just had in Joe Slovo taxi ranks 3 people murdered a few days ago, just last week, in broad daylight, people out there waiting. And then we've talked a little bit about the Cape Flats here, which has seen a massive increase from an influx of people coming in from the Eastern Cape and elsewhere, flooding the Cape Flames and Cape Flats. And people can talk about, well, it's a mess. Well, yeah, when there's 10 times as many people living there as there were 30 years ago, you're going to have a mess. Nobody can keep up with that kind of influx. So the taxi wars, I think this is emblematic of what's happening in South Africa in the whole. And even if you had the best police in the metro and competent SAPs that were working together and a justice system to prosecute people, I suspect that this is something that's going to be tough to take on, because it seems like gangsters and mafiosi are behind these taxi wars. Does that make any sense? Or
Yeah, you see, we have two big associations, CARTA and CODETA. Mm-hmm. And, I sat in one of the meetings where we called, in different role players, and I sat in one of those meetings. And it seems to me that CARTA and CODETA just make their own rules. Mm. You're not allowed to use this route, and you're not allowed. So the Western Cape government is trying now to have the routes closed and to take control of those routes. But I spoke to the MEC, and he was a member with me before he became MEC, and he's out there. He just closed one of the routes that was problematic. But the provincial government with the city will have to get CARTA and CODETA under control. They are law unto themselves. They give fines, and they repossess cars. They do everything that's totally illegal, and there must be a clampdown on them. And because and I know the taxi business is a lucrative business, so it's all about fighting for routes. And so I believe that is still an area, bringing them together. They've tried. I believe the government has tried to bring them together to have some peace talks. But the authority must be given back to the province and to the municipality. And CARTA and CODETA will have to abide by what the rules are. and not make their own rules. I believe that is the biggest problem that we have at the moment, that they make their own rules because it's about money, money, money. And and I believe now, I mean, there were taxes impounded, and sentences giving. So we on the right track. But Carter and Codeta cannot be lords unto themselves. They need to abide like any organization, any association, abide by the rules. And at the moment, these guys think they're above the law. But I still believe that there's hope, and I still believe we can pull that right by intervening and close some of the taxi routes. So the MEC here has closed some of the problematic taxi routes, and then, talk about it. Why does it close, and when do you open it if it's safe again? Because commuters use, of course, the taxi, public transport to go to work. So that's an important role player when it comes to getting people to work. Because, our railway system is in a mess. It's terrible. And now people rely more on Golden Arrow and the taxi services. So unfortunately, that's the modes of transport.
Well, and actually, I've driven into the central business district of Cape Town at rush hour in the morning and tried to escape in the evening, and there's already enough traffic on that artery. Man, it gets clogged. It gets so you don't really need more, and the taxis alleviate a lot of that when you figure 8, 10, or 37 people are in each combi. Oh, come on, you've seen them. We've both seen them, overloaded to the max. Of course, magically there's no virus in those vans. So just to point that out, it doesn't affect anybody in those vans. But well, thank you for your thoughts on that. That's very helpful. Now, you mentioned your position on mandatory vaccinations. Your party opposes that, correct?
Mandatory vaccination. We're not anti-vaccination.
Exactly.
But we believe that everybody must be free to choose if they want to be vaccinated or not. That's correct, yes.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're straight on that, because I suspect that that'll get you votes to your standard in this election, that position alone. A lot of people are really hopeful of this fascist approach that governments around the world are taking to issues that affect their personal lives and their liberty and freedom. And I suspect that you'll probably pick up some votes just on that issue alone. So probably put you in good stead there in the Western Cape. Now, we were asked about, one of the viewers asked about fiscal policy. What's the ACDP's position on fiscal policy? Are you for? I mean, this is a difficult proposition in a country that has so much development work that needs to be done. So many things need to be fixed. Just the water system alone in Cape Town. But fiscal policy is tough to keep under control if you're dealing with all that. So do you have a fiscal policy, an approach to it? Or are you like the ANC? No, that's not fair. I don't think you're going to steal. ANC just steals everything and then they blame you on Van Riebeck. But anyway, that's not what you're going to do.
Yeah. No, look, the city of Cape Town's got a massive budget. We believe there's enough money to service the people of Cape Town. So one of the things that we want to do when we get into the city is to look at the budget and look at unnecessary expenditure. Now, I don't know if you know, there is a Corruption Watch report that the city of Cape Town do not have clean hands. The city of Cape Town, out of all the municipalities, if you go to Corruption Watch, you'll see that the city of Cape Town, with his bribery and corruption, is the 5th most corrupt municipality in the country, 5th. So they're talking about a lot of this corruption is in the municipal office, municipal manager's office, and also weak leadership. So the first thing that we want to do is look and reprioritize the budget because of the amount of money that there is. But money gets spent on nice to haves, nice to haves. Let me just give you an example, is that every year the municipal manager and the offices of executives must be refurbished, upgrading of equipment. And this works out to millions of rand. So, of course, when we are in government, the first thing that we want to do is look at the needs of the people and then alter and adjust your budget according to the needs of the people. And, as a Christian party, if people are found to have dirty hands or corrupt, we'll get rid of them, because it's not right that people pay taxes and the money is stolen. So we have a clear-cut policy when it comes to budgetary constraints, when it comes to, I don't know if you know, but you should know that Dan Plato, that is our mayor, he just decided that municipal officials is not going to have an increase. And, and that is your frontline workers. They need to produce the services. And I would rather look at how do politicians not take an increase? How do politicians look at how can we look at the budget of Cape Town and reduce politicians' expenditure? Because, the man in the street that works, that's a frontline worker, the one way to demotivate him is to tell him you're not going to increase, irrespective of you doing good work or not. So there's a couple of things, of course, that you want to do. You heard what I say, but the first thing I would say, when I must step into office, the first year, no politician in the city of Cape Town will get a raise. That is because you need to set the example. If you're serious about fiscal policies, you need to be the example. And I said, and I promised our voters, if I must be elected, the first thing for the first year is no politician will get a raise, and we will take that money and address it where it's more needed.
No, it's a fair point. Erica just said in the chat here, talking about Cape Town, the insane traffic, she says, looking at the mountain while stuck in traffic is probably the only redeeming element. Yeah, that's if you're looking out the left side of the vehicle. But if you're in South Africa, you're driving on the right-hand side and you're looking at the informal settlement shacks. That's what you see, not the mountain. So she must be a passenger in Cape Town. I'm just saying. But thank you for that input on fiscal policy. Well, here's something. Let me ask this question. The Freedom Front Plus, of course, is one of these parties that's come out in favor of it because they have always been about self-determination. And I asked this question again to them today. Where does ACDP sit in this question that's been circulating now and getting more attention over the past 18 months about Cape secession? Are you in favor of it? Do you oppose it? Do you have a party position on it, on the secession issue?
Yeah, there's two things. The first thing that I've said when I answered this question, the first thing is we will allow if Cape Town want to have a referendum, and it's allowed that premiers can do that, because constitutionally only the president can call for a referendum, but they want to change that premiers can call for a referendum. And we said as the ACDP, let the people of Cape Town decide, of the Western Cape decide. That's one. The second thing is, for us, we always said that the Western Cape and each and every province must be federal states, like in America. More powers devolve to the provinces. So that is what we stand for. We stand for federalization of South Africa, so that the powers is not centered in a unitary state, but that we have strong federal powers where we have our own say over our police, our education, our health, all these systems that's in a mess because it's centralized. We are calling for strong federal powers, that we have control over our own, issues, home affairs, and all of those. So that is what we stand for. But we were fair to say, if the people of Cape Town calls for a referendum, let them decide. So that is my two-pronged approach.
No, that's very clear. Thank you. And back to the issue earlier, you said that the party does oppose mandatory vaccinations. It's up to the individual choices. Your position on that? I'm going to guess I know the answer, but let me ask you anyway, because these are timely questions. People are asking these things all the time of everyone around the world. Where would your party sit on this concept of vax passports? But before you answer, I do have to share something. For nearly 40 years, I've been getting jabbed with everything you could possibly imagine. Hepatitis A, B, C, shingles, measles, mumps, rubella. influenza, rabies, yellow fever, typhoid. I got 7 World Health Organization cogent, the yellow cards in here, all of which are accepted universally around the world by every health official in every country when I enter if they want to ask me a question. And why all of a sudden I'm asking myself, do I have to have a mobile phone and have an application on here? And what am I supposed to give this to my 2-year-old? They're going to have a phone for their jab. So that's where I sit, if you're wondering where I sit. But where does the ACDP sit on this concept of vaccinating passports? Do you think it's a good idea, or are you in favor or opposed to it?
Heavily opposed to it. So we don't believe in vaccine passports. We don't believe that people must have a passport to go to a sporting event or to a restaurant. No, and I don't know if you know, but the ACDP has fought government before, the health department, when it came to rolling out the ivermectin. And we said to government that we just had a picket in Pretoria and now in Cape Town. And on the 30th of this month, we will have a major picket to say no to vaccine passports and no to mandatory vaccines.
What I'd encourage you to do ahead of time, but it'll accomplish nothing, but you should do it to get on the record, is send SABC and News 24 a letter explaining to them that this demonstration is not anti-vax, it's anti-passport, because they falsely and fraudulently reported the events that took place about a week ago at Sea Point, in which the police attacked women. They went after women especially. I see that Debbie Ells now has a lawsuit against SAPS. Good for her. I hope that she's successful in that lawsuit. They lied about that. The media claiming it was an anti-vax rally. The poster's very clear. There may have been some people who were against the jab. There's people against 5G. There's people against everything under the sun. But this was not about that. That was a anti-digital passport thing, which is what your rally is. But send them letters. That way you've got it on the record, but they probably are just going to ignore it and report what they want anyway. So, well, let me switch to something else here. And I don't know if this affects you or if you're interested. I don't know. Are you a rugby fan at all? Is that something that interests you, or?
I know rugby. I know rugby. Yes.
Okay, because I'm heartbroken at the disastrous state of the Western Province Rugby Union, now basically in receivership, or in the South African euphemism for bankruptcy, business rescue. SARU, which is hardly a well-run union in of itself, has taken over the South African Rugby Union Western Province. Of course, Zelt Marais, and I don't think it's an unfair criticism, has run this union into the ground. It's very disappointing. As a lifelong, well, not lifelong, but since 1984, Western Province supporter, I'm very heartbroken. Is that making the news at all in that area in the Western Cape? People talking about what's going on with the Stormers in Western Province, or is it like we got bigger problems than rugby?
Yeah. People look, the Western Cape and especially Cape Town, you have huge Western Province supporters, and people are heartbroken. Like you say, Zelt Marais has driven VP Rugby into the ground. And I don't want to tell you the horrifying stories that I hear happening when it comes to them. You know, it's just, I don't know if they think that we as a province, we are proud of our rugby. We love our rugby. The stands were always packed. And then the first thing is move from Newlands was another huge mistake, So there already we could see mismanagement of funds and all of that. So this is just, and like you say now with SARU intervening, SARU is not in good hands at the moment. And but it just tells you the sad state that the province is in, and that I don't know how we're going to solve this problem. But the big thing is, you must imagine, since a little boy, we went to watch our heroes and so on. So we are a big rugby province. People, they will do anything. Rugby tickets is sometimes so expensive, and people will still go to the games. So we are all rugby fans, and we are saddened and disappointed that VP Rugby is really, gone to the dogs.
Well, I agree with you. And right now, it's really hard to say the phrase VP you like a ding because they're not. They really aren't. They really aren't. That's a proud magnet on my fridge. Every time I open the fridge up, I see it VP you like a ding. Very disappointing. And thanks for sharing your thoughts on that because it wasn't something I anticipated bringing up, but it just came to mind. And it just, I'm very frustrated. The concept of tearing down Newlands is heartbreaking. It's the oldest rugby pitch in South Africa. I think it's the dumbest thing ever. It's like taking down a monument. You know, it's really sad. But okay, let's shift gears a little bit if it's okay with you here. All right, so the numbers. You're going to improve on this. I mean, there's no way you're not going to improve unless you intentionally try to sabotage your party. Because you were, I think, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th or 10th in the total of votes in the 2016 municipal election. So we're looking at that. So your party got 151,000 votes, or 0.4%, not 0.4% of the vote in municipal elections. Now, that number doesn't matter much on a national basis because you have certain areas where you're stronger, like in the Western Cape and other spots. The key is to win wards, and that's what we don't want to lose that. We get lots of people. But still, I suspect you're going to have a tremendous improvement over 151,000 votes. Are you feeling that? Do you think that the ACDP, this is a chance for the party to strike and make some gains against other parties and get some ward councillor seats that you've never had a chance to get before? How are you feeling about this prospects for this election?
So there's two things that is very important to me. The first thing is that the lies that are told to voters not to vote for a small party because it's a wasted vote. So I've got people going out day by day and explain to them the proportional system, that there's no wasted vote. It's the proportion of votes that you receive that you will get in the municipality. So, you know, there's many of our voters that are ignorant. Many of our voters are scared for the ANC and the EFF, and the DA comes with scary tactics. Keep the ANC out. And what we're trying to do is educate the voter to say, first of all, you're going to vote for a person in the ward to represent you, to speak for your ward. So all the needs and all the programs you want rolled out in your ward, get a capable person to do that, to speak on your behalf. That's the first vote in the city of Cape Town. The second vote is proportional representation, where the party, of course, have a list. So I am very optimistic. The one thing that I can really tell you is that a lot of Christian churches, a lot of Christians are coming on board because they're looking for hope. They're looking for genuine leadership. They're looking for strong leadership. The DA and the ANC has both failed the voter. If you look at, I made the example the other day, Courtney Sampson. He was the IEC chairperson for 22 years and is retired now. He said, Cape Town has gone backwards. He says, as the IEC, you go to poor areas and you encourage people to vote. But the conditions are so bad that how can you ask those people to vote? So he says the conditions is very bad. And he also says that leadership is very bad and politicians don't have integrity and honesty. That is what he said. So you wanna try to breach that gap, that people can see integrity, that people can see honesty and really mean, like I said, I've got meetings every night in different communities, and you try to bring hope back to the people to say your vote does matter. It can change your community. And that is what we're trying to tell our voter. So I'm very optimistic that we will do well in the city of Cape Town and also the Western Cape, because people is really looking for alternative. People is really looking for people they can trust. So I'm very optimistic, and I believe we're going to do extremely well in the city of Cape Town and the Western Cape.
Well, are there any specific places that the parties really focus their targeting on? For instance, you're looking at the West Coast, the Overberg, the Garden Route, the Winelands, or the Karoo, or obviously you're focused in Cape Town. But are any of those other areas, places you've put a big focus on? When I talked to Jack Miller from the Cape Independence Party, obviously he doesn't have the resources or the candidates to cover all that ground. So they did have a few focus areas. Do you have good coverage with candidates and wards throughout the Western Cape, or are you focused on a few specific areas?
So Cape Town, of course, is our strong point. That is where we have a lot of strength, Cape Town, but also the Garden Route. We've always been strong in the Garden Route. George and Mossel Bay, we always had council representation in Knysna. And then we also this time around is looking at the Cedarburg area, the West Coast, that's in the West Coast and Saldanha. And then also when we go to the Cape Winelands, we've always been strong. Stellenbosch, we always had councillors there. Paarl, we had also had councillors there. Yesterday, I visited Ceres, I visited Worcester, and I visited Drakensberg, Paarl. So I visited those areas yesterday, and people are optimistic at least getting into council. So I visited the province, and then also Houston in the Overberg area. I've been there last week to areas there, and it seems to me that we will get new councillors in new areas that we've never had before, and we will also increase our number of councillors in the city of Cape Town, in other areas also. So I really believe that after this, we'll have representation almost in the entire province.
No, it's interesting, and I was curious about that because some parties are strong in places than other parties, and I just think that's important to talk about. You know, and I just one of the viewers was talking about how small parties are helping the ANC, and I kind of have to point out that the fact that that's not the case in the Western Cape. In the Western Cape, the ANC in the city of Cape Town only has 57 seats in the 2016. I don't know what they currently have with by-elections, but they had 57 out of 231. That's less than a quarter. If you throw the EFF in there, it's still less than 30%, around 30% or less. So even if the ACDP gains a bunch of seats, it's not going to help the ANC. They might gain some from the ANC. They might gain from the DA. They might gain from others. But whether you and other small parties take away, the ANC is that was before the lockdown. That was before daily corruption cases by the ANC. The Minister of Agriculture for the Eastern Cape now embroiled in a double murder charge. And Zweli Mkhize, Digital Vibes, and Zundile Gumeda. The list, Zandile Gumeda. The list goes on and on. Ace Magashule. Every single day, the internal fighting in the party that's collapsing left and right. The ANC is going to be hard-pressed to hold on to 25% of its vote in Cape Town would be my argument. And so I don't really agree with my viewer's comment that you're taking away. Now, people are making the argument that that might be the case, say, in Nelson Mandela Bay or in Tshwane or in Joburg. I think that's a legitimate argument there. But I don't think that's the case in the Western Cape. The DA had over 50%, and if anybody suffers, it'll probably be the DA. But the ANC is not going to double. They would have to nearly double their share of the vote just to take control. And in order for a disaster to happen, would be for the ANC to take control of the Cape. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I predict it right now. You can hold me to it.
No. Let me just jump in there. You are so right. The ANC has got so much problems, and they cannot even, they're trying to hold on to power in other municipalities outside the Western Cape. So Tshwane and Joburg and all these areas are so important to them, and they're trying to hold on to power. They're busy losing power in Tshwane and Johannesburg. Nelson Mandela Bay, let me just tell you that our Lance Grootboom, he's a MACO member on the MACO, on the Mail Committee out in Nelson Mandela Bay. And he's always worked with the DA, sharing power with the DA in Nelson Mandela Bay. So if anything, he was at least there to strengthen the DA, and he was there to keep the DA accountable. And that is what we will do in the Western Cape. We will keep the DA accountable. But like you say, I think the ANC most probably is going to lose more seats in the city of Cape Town.
I that's exactly. I think we're in agreement on that. We'll see what happens. If we're wrong, but I don't think either of us are wrong on that expectation. And by the way, we're not exactly geniuses in making that prediction. I mean, Helen Keller and Stevie Wonder could make this call. I think. I'm just saying. So not to downplay how smart we might be or might not be. But by the way, who is the mayoral candidate for the ACDP in Cape Town?
I'm the male candidate.
There we go. There you go. Just in case people didn't know. In case people didn't know that, that's why we want to make sure they got the word on that. Well, so that gives me two candidates. Of course, I'm not going to get the DA candidate on here. They don't. It's hard to get them on the channel. But I've had Leonard Max on, who's part of your competition there for the Freedom Front Plus. And, of course, he's also a former police officer experience in the same area that you were working. Well, I'm going to put you on the spot here, okay? I think it's fair to put you on the spot because I may have misunderstood what you were saying earlier. I think I understood it correctly, and I get the intent, but it runs into a question of reality here. So let me put this out there. You talked about one of the challenges in South Africa is rates are too high. I assume you were talking about water rates, electricity rates, and things like that. If I'm wrong, correct me. And you talk about you want to reduce rates because people can't afford to pay it. Now, that's a noble goal, but the problem with that we run into is if we're talking about electricity, for instance, Eskom has been selling power at less than production cost. So that's the first problem. So if we're going to lower rates, they're already not making money. They're losing money in every kilowatt they generate normally. That's the first thing. And the water issue here is with the dilapidated state of water infrastructure in Cape Town, a lot of investments got to go into it. So if we're going to reduce rates, that's going to be a challenge, I think. Now, am I correct? Are those rates you're talking about, or is it something, tax rates, or what were you referring to? I don't want to misquote you.
I was referring to property rates.
Okay, that's why I asked. See, I had to ask. Okay, see, you're talking about property tax rates. Is that what you're talking about?
That's right.
Okay,
That's
excellent. Thank you. All right, but would you agree with me? Those are things that my assessment's correct. Lowering prices for vital services like electricity and water are challenging because of just the state of the situation, how bad it's gotten in the country as a whole.
You must remember the city of Cape Town at the moment is writing off debt, millions and millions of rands of debt. And there, of course, the city also have an indigent grant system where if you get under a certain amount of income, you get rebate on certain things. So we will have to look at that and how that works and see how can we assist the real poor. But there's already things in place to look at that. So we will look at that and see how we can assist on that. But as I said to you, the biggest problem that I have is it's unaffordable to live in Cape Town because of property rates. And just the pipe levy to have water run to your tap, every resident pays 150 rand. And I believe that can be scrapped, a pipe levy. We have leaking pipes all over the show and you pay a pipe levy. So really, you want to make it work, but you must also but the important thing for me is I want to respect the ratepayer, the people staying in Cape Town, and also be fair. You don't want to lose people. You want to get people into Cape Town to boom the economy, to create jobs. So you want to make it attractive. And that's why I say at the moment, it's just the rates is quite expensive. Let me just tell you, I usually cut my hair in Cape Town in the centrals. And my barber there, he stays in Vredeklof, and he said to me, the municipal valuation of his house. Now listen to this. This is ridiculous. It's 2 million rand more than what he can get for his house. And that is what I'm talking about. That is what I'm talking about.
Crazy.
He's 72 years old. He wants to sell his house. He got the estate agent in, and the municipal valuation is 2 million rand more. That cannot be. So that's crazy. So that is what I'm talking about.
Gotcha. Absolutely. Well, listen, we've had tax revolts in America. California had Proposition 13 back in the 70s because tax rates were so high. And what it did is the public fought against it and they won. They got the law changed out there, but they crippled the state's ability to raise revenue. So they went other ways and started finding other things to tax and take money out of our pockets. It's crazy. I lived in California a couple of times, and thank God I'm a refugee from there. I'm not living out in California anymore. But yeah, that's the danger here. Hey, Mark Naidu is here. Mark is a candidate for the UIM up there in Gauteng. Welcome, Mark. I just want to address something very quickly here. If you give me just a moment there, Ferlon. I need to address this. Okay, so this is one of the viewers was timed out. Ferdosh Diakis said this is a waste of time watching this crap. Keep putting the DA down. I'll take that as an insult intended for me. because and what I'll say is my guest hasn't been putting the DA down. That I've seen. He's just been speaking factual points and truths. If the truth is difficult to swallow, then perhaps you need another dish, and that dish is not South African politics. The DA is responsible in large measure for what does and doesn't happen in the Western Province and in Cape Town. Now, the reality is that there are national competencies like we talked about and things that cross lines like water management, but the SAPS is a national competency. But there are local competencies like the Metro Police and the city's water distribution, things like that. So if it doesn't work, then who do you look to and who do you turn to? The DA's had control for a long time, and so that's a legitimate issue. My guest, in my view, has not attacked the DA once. He's not called out any politicians. He's not attacked any. I think he mentioned Dan Plato, but it wasn't in a nasty manner. Now, if you've bothered to watch my channel, you were timed out by one of my moderators because you were making personal attacks. We don't accept that here, particularly in an open conversation like this. How else can we get guests to come on here and share their views if people are going to attack them personally? Again, I'll take the attack as a personal attack on me. If you've watched my channel at all, I have told people since June of last year something that is a bit opposed to what my guest is asking you to do. I have told people to vote in municipalities since June of last year for the party that has a legitimate chance to get a majority, +1. So that they don't have to have coalitions and they're not beholden to corrupt parties like Athol Trollop was in Nelson Mandela Bay. That has been my position, or not corrupt parties, but bad actors, I should say. I should say bad actors, not corrupt parties, but bad actors. That has been my position all along. That's my position. That's a little bit different than what my guest is saying. My guest is saying, listen, proportional representation out there, go vote for the party because they get proportional seats. And that's a fair statement. So this is open discourse. If you're uncomfortable with it, then I suggest that you take it elsewhere. But to dump on my guest or dump on me because you have views that are different than his or mine, it's just not appropriate. It's not adult behavior. It's juvenile behavior, and just take it elsewhere. So you're welcome to stay and join the conversation. Again, the person was given a timeout. There's no need to leave. I don't take personal offense to it, even if it was intended at me. And I just making sure that we have an open, as the left likes to say, we want a safe space here. We want a safe space here. But as you've said, what we're trying to do is get honest, legitimate people. Your party is focusing on that, and you're a candidate for mayor in Cape Town, and you think the prospects are looking pretty good for the ACDP in the Western Cape. What about any of the other parts of the country? Are you guys feeling good about the Eastern Cape or anywhere else? Or I know that it's unfair to ask you, maybe, but you maybe have your finger on the pulse a little more than outside the Western Cape. Can you give me any feedback for the rest of the country, or are you just comfortable commenting on Western Cape?
No, we have an excellent councillor out in Nelson Mandela Bay, Lance Grootboom. Like I said, he's the Middle Committee member for health. He's doing an excellent job and he's working hard. I believe that we will do well in Nelson Mandela Bay. We have a very competent our member of our Provincial Legislature out there, Dalton Adams. He's our middle candidate out there. Very, very strong personality, got a lot of political experience. So if I must say, then I believe also Jamil Isop in the Durban area is also doing well. So we have a few strong candidates in certain areas. The Western Cape, Gauteng, and also the KZN area has been our strongholds when it comes to national and provincial elections. But I need to just point out, like I said, Nelson Mandela Bay, Lance Grootboom is doing an excellent job. He has changed dump sites in his portfolio, 200 dump sites into parks, and he's doing an amazing job. And that is what people want to see. Like I told you earlier, what is the solutions to the problems? How do we make our city work and the people happy? Because as you know, in our city, you have a lot of tires burning, service delivery protests. How do you get people to honor what we have built and so on? So Lance and those people, and also Dalton Adams in Gauteng in the legislature has done good work. So I believe that in those areas as well, because I know this because I sit on the national executive, that's why I can give you that view. So not Cape Town alone, but outside of the Western Cape, we also hopeful to do well.
Well, and again, as I said, 151,000 votes in the 2016 municipal elections. I can't imagine that you won't do far better than that in these elections, as many of the smaller parties, at least in performance in the polls, should do in this election. The anger over the African National Congress is palpable, over state capture, over corruption, over the theft of PPE money. I mean, in the midst of a black swan event like this pandemic that, according to Cyril himself, is a once in a century health crisis, the greatest in a century. ANC government members at all levels have been stealing and pilfering money meant for citizens of South Africa. It's unconscionable. It shows, in my view, and Ferlon, if you want to comment on this, you're welcome to. In my view, it shows a clear decay in morality and value. It really shows low morals that you would steal from people in a crisis like this, when millions of people lost their jobs, thousands of businesses are gone forever, restaurants collapsed, tourism businesses collapsed, jobs that'll never come back in many cases. And with the ANC continuing its expropriation without compensation movement, which defies the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And it also, by the way, in my personal view, is a violation of the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, which means that South Africa should be suspended from duty-free access to U.S. market. With all that scaring investors away, and then what happens in KwaZulu-Natal and in Gauteng in July, basically an eternal ANC insurrection, foreign direct investment is drying up. And we see big deals announced, but these are deals that came up 3 years ago. They're just coming to fruition now. People are walking away from South Africa, and it's really sad, not just South Africans. Are you at all concerned about the trajectory of the country that it's facing now? I know you're running for mayor, and you've got people you're trying to focus the ward councilor, but are you hoping perhaps that this election can set the stage for honesty, transparency, responsiveness to residents and citizens, to set the stage so that in 2024, people go, wait a second. I voted ACDP last time, and I can actually talk to my ward councilor. Something got done. This guy's making stuff happen. That gal's making stuff happen. On the Freedom Front Plus, they did so. Maybe in 2024, the ANC's not the only party who can actually deliver something for me. Are you hoping that's the outcome? Because that's been my fervent hope, is that this election will be the springboard to show that the ANC, because most people were born after 1994. They've never experienced anything except ANC rule, and that's all they know. So they don't know that someone else can run the country. Anyway, that was a long diatribe. And the question is, do you feel the same way as I do, that this could be a springboard to get the ANC unseated at the national provincial level in 2024?
Let me tell you, 2024, we're going to go full out to make a massive dent. So as you're saying, for us as the ACDP, this should be a springboard for 2024. This should be a stepping stone toward, being a serious role player come 2024. Now, our message is very clear. You have an option now to vote for leaders that is honest, that's got integrity. You got an opportunity now to have a ward councillor serving you. And this is what we always say, irrespective of who you are, we need one another in order for this country to succeed, the city to succeed. So yes, my answer is that we believe when we have quite a number of councillors elected, that they will do a sterling job to bring dignity and integrity back to politics, to bring honesty back to politics, and change the narrative that's only the ANC or only the DA, but there's other political parties that can bring some substance to the political narrative in order for this party, for this country to grow. And we in the ACDP, we've always believed, and we've got all the resources. We've got everything to have this country be successful. It's just we have the wrong people stealing the government coffers, corruption, and not being, penalized or imprisoned for these type of things. So government must be serious. So we really want to bring that turnaround and bring hope to our people so that they see that this beautiful country, we can work together to make this really, the rose of Africa. And that is really what we're trying to achieve.
Well, I got a couple comments here from the chat that I'd like to bring in from Nkosi and from Diakis, who hung around. Thank you for hanging around, Diakis. I appreciate that. That's very man up of you. I appreciate that. But before we do that, we're going to break now to a live African National Congress press conference. We would like to talk today about gender-based violence. Quick, steal all the PPE money over there. I'm busy keeping them distracted. Yes, gender-based violence is a big concern for us. And since I've been president for nearly 4 years, I've done bupkis about stopping it. Have you stolen enough yet? Okay, they don't see you. Sorry, distracted there. For those who missed that, that was an African National Congress press conference distracting the voters with gender-based violence when it suddenly becomes an important topic to hide what the ANC is doing. I'm sorry. That was paid for by the ANC, just so people know that. But seriously, so the two things here, the two comments, Kule Nkosi says, does your guest expect the ACDP to grow in Durban? A bit off topic. No, not really. He just talked about Durban. So how do you feel about Durban? I suspect we're going to see the DA pick up a lot of votes in Durban, especially Phoenix and Amazantoti and other places like that because of what happened in July. I expect to see the IFP probably pick up more support there. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say the ANC goes below 50%. It's not much of a limb. They were at 58% in Durban in 2016. I expect them to drop below that this time. They'll go below 50% in Durban. Do you expect to do well in Durban? Or not Durban? What did he say? He said KZN or DC? He said in Durban. In Durban. How do you feel about your prospects in Durban, Ferlon?
Look, like I said, Jamil Isop is our male candidate out in Durban. Now, if we want to move forward as the ACDP, there must be growth. And I expect at least growth. I don't know how much growth. I'm not on the ground there. I'm not engaging. I just see what he's doing. Mm-hmm. So he's working, he's visible, and I hope to see growth in Durban. And that is a fair answer because, as you know, you see the man on Facebook, you see him doing his best and being out and speaking to the problems that we're facing in Durban. And he's been very vocal out in Durban. And I really hope that we can sow some growth in Durban as well.
Thank you very much. And then Firdaus Deukes had a question. ACDP posters nowhere to be seen. Cash issues. Well, I suppose it depends where you're at. I don't think we're going to see a lot of ACDP posters in the Northern Cape or in Northwest where they don't have strongholds. Tell us where you're at, Firdaus, and maybe they haven't been put up yet. The other thing, too, is that cash issues, I don't know. I imagine most political parties have cash issues. Actually, I was actually astounded to find out how little financing the main parties have. We saw that the DA had the largest amount of money that came in during the most recent cycle, according to the Independent Electoral Commission, and the amount of money was compared to a U.S. political race was a joke. I mean, we have House of Representatives races in America that spend 10 times what the DA is raised and 20 times what the ANC is raised. So money might be an issue, but I suspect it's an issue for all parties. Listen, in Nelson Mandela Bay, the ANC put up 2019 national posters to get people to vote for this election, and they put them up on polls where you couldn't see half the poster because they're morons. So I suspect, I don't know, maybe there's a cash issue. I don't know here, but I suspect that's a perpetual problem for political parties. But I don't know if you want to weigh in on that, Ferlon, before we get ready to wrap up here. But is raising funds an issue for the party, and are posters one symbol or sign of why maybe there's not enough money to go around?
That answer is twofold. The first thing is, when it comes to elections, you must use your strategy. So important. If you put up your posters too early, they get stolen or the wind takes them off.
That's a good point.
You understand?
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yes. So you must time it right. But there's no ways that you're going to put up posters in areas that you're going to get 1 or 2 votes. So you must be very strategic where you put up your posters, because you don't have the resources to put up all the posters in the Western Cape, in all the polls, in all the areas. So where we are strong and where we have support and where we're going to get the most of our votes, that is where you want to put your posters at. So everything is about strategy. Not even the ANC, not even the DA will have posters on all the polls. But you can be very strategic where to put it. And you see with big political parties like the DA and the ANC, they will put up the first round of posters and then they'll come with the second round of posters. We just have one round of posters, and the timing must be absolutely right to put it up at the right time.
So, as I said, it may be a case of we're getting close to the end here, folks. I can't keep him. He's been very generous with his time. I can't keep too much longer, but it may just be a case of the timing. To be fair, though, I don't vote for people based on posters. I've never done that. I appreciate it. I get the whole idea of getting your name out to get attention. But I vote based on, now I'm probably much more informed than the average voter in most places around the world, but I vote on what my personal views are and who can best match them. And I never find an exact match. I never find a great match. I find a good match sometimes. But posters don't do it for me. In the day and age of internet websites make a big difference for me. Social media, seeing parties' positions, watching what party leaders have to say. Even political rallies aren't even that big a draw anymore. I mean, especially in the age of Rona, people are terrified to go to those things. But for me, it's not the posters, although, they make a difference. For me, I like to collect the posters and keep them afterwards to remind myself, what was done and not done in a previous election. So, to me, for the African Christian Democratic Party, I think the money is made with the boots on the ground, going to neighborhoods, going to the Cape Flats, going to suburban leafy suburbs, hitting Stellenbosch, hitting Paarl, hitting Saldanha Bay, Hermanus, going out there to Mossel Bay, and meeting people in the streets, meeting in their homes, meeting their places of worship, where they work at. Well, maybe not in a place of worship. You shouldn't be campaigning inside a place of worship, but outside, if you get my point. And meeting people and bringing them to your standard. Tell them who you are. And before we wrap up, I'd like to go across a few of the things where the media's attacked you, if that's okay. But do you think my approach matters, or are you heavy in on posters? Do you think it makes a big impact?
The answer is you're right when it comes to, so we have foot soldiers on the ground, canvassers on the ground that engage with people on a regular basis. That's the first thing. Social media, we are extremely active. I have a dedicated team to work on social media. Why I am talking about the posters, some people, the posters in their face, they want to see some visibility.
Yeah.
So there is that small percentage that want to see the visibility of the ACDP. So you do the posters, you do the social media, you have your foot soldiers on the ground. So you try to do all of them. And that is what we've been doing, Chris.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. Let me just get one comment back here from Diakus to respond to that, and then link you to this last couple questions, because I don't want to keep you too late here. But Diakus says, do you have posters countrywide in every town? But Diakus, I appreciate what you're saying, but that flies in the face of what people have been telling me from all over the country. You just saw that Lea Janssen van Rensburg, who lives in Gauteng, just said that there's no posters in that area. I've heard people from all over the country tell me that there's from every province except Limpopo. Nobody's talked to me from Limpopo. Have told me in every other province, Northwest, Northern Cape, Western Cape, Eastern Cape, you name it, that there are no DA posters, no ANC posters, no EFF, no posters at all in their area. It seems that parties are marshaling their resources in the places where they think they can make a surge, and that's probably what it is. Well, let me shift for Ferlon real quick so we can get this wrapped up and let you enjoy your evening with your family. When I read about the ACDP in the media in South Africa, they're anti-homosexual, they're anti-this, they're anti-that, they're a hate-filled party, and they've shown their true face. This is what the media says about your party all the time. I'm not an expert on the African Christian Democratic Party. I know a bit about your party, and I've learned a lot more today, courtesy of you sharing your thoughts and your party's, I cringe saying this word, manifesto. Sorry, your party platform. But, having said that, it's can you tell us a little bit about some of these things that I suspect are myths or distortions, at least, of your party's platform? And I assume you're cognizant of that. And when you see it in the press, and if that's the only press you get, does it bother you, or you just say, that's just the press being the press?
So the important thing is we, of course, being a Christian party, being biblically based, we don't approve of, homosexual behavior, the conduct. But the important thing is we appreciate everybody. And if people are ill-treated because they are homosexual, we've got a problem. We cannot speak hatred towards those people. All that we're saying as a party is we cannot approve of your conduct, but you're still a human being. We still love you. And, so there's no hate speech. There's no hatred towards them. It's just the conduct that we against, because that is our biblical based view. But if there's any atrocities or any gays are beaten up because they are gay, or being raped because we are asking people to go to the police station, lay a charge, and bring the perpetrators to book. So gay people must be treated as any other person in society, and that is what we believe as the ACDP.
No, I think that's excellent. It's a misnomer and a distortion when people talk about conservatives, and of course, conservatives tend to include Christians, but not all Christians. Some are liberal. But when people talk about conservatives, they always talk about they hate homosexuals, they hate this, hate that. Those are distortions and lies. I hear no hate coming from your heart. You're showing you have love and compassion for your fellow man. It's just you're saying that your faith, which other people don't share, but your faith has opposition to homosexuality, and it's not something you can condone or endorse, is what you're saying. But your love for your fellow man runs deep, and you would stand up and you would fight for a homosexual who is discriminated against or attacked because of their sexuality. Okay, well, we've caught that. Well, unlike the mainstream media, I think we've captured that accurately.
Yes, 100%.
So I did have, let me get to this question before I let you go, because it was a super chat, and I want to make sure I don't miss it, because super chats are appreciated. It supports independent journalism. Brett Sessoms here in the United States says, now I don't know, I haven't seen polling, but he's asking, what do the polls say about your party in 2021? Is there any polling data? Are you getting any information on that? Or is it even worth the time to do polling data in such a short election time span?
I've not seen anything in the Western Cape. I've not seen anything in Cape Town. I've not seen any polling data specifically to Cape Town or the Western Cape. So I've seen nothing at all.
Well, here's Mark Naidu. Arctic has just become a member. I think that's renewal, but I'll give him a salute anyway, real quick. It's a renewal. Yeah, to let you know, as a retired colonel, every time someone becomes a paying member of the channel, support independent journalism, and it doesn't cost much. It's like, in South Africa, it's like 20 Rand per month. I just do it because people want to be part of the community. I render a salute. That's a sign of respect, and so I do that. And a proper American salute, not this British nonsense like this, No, but seriously. So Arctic said he used his milestone free super chat, said, may God bless you and keep you and your family safe, Ferlon. That's very kind of him. Arctic is a pilot, and he's on here frequently in the program. And then I did get a super chat before we wrap up here from Artie Pandey, who said, Chris, thanks for these interviews on your channel. It's been great to hear from all the parties and understanding what they're all about. Great work. Well, thank you for that. It's very kind of you. I'm humbled by that. Thank you very much. Fleshin says, my daughter's mate is a white Namibian married to a Brit. She lives up here but loves her country, but her family are dirt poor farmers, no different to their neighbors. Interesting. I'm not sure how it relates to the conversation, but I just happened to see that down there. So anyway, listen, Ferlon, Christian, I want to thank you so much for taking the time on such short notice to come on here to get such a senior level member of the National Executive Committee for the African Christian Democratic Party, a candidate for mayor in Cape Town. The one, I guess, question I've got here is that if you became the mayor of Cape Town, do you have to give up your position in the provincial legislature? I would guess you probably do.
Yes, 100%. You must give up. You cannot serve on the provincial and local government. So I have to give up my position in provincial parliament if I would become mayor of Cape Town. You're 100% right. You got it.
So you're trying to work yourself out of a job.
That's right. Yes.
Okay. Well, listen, bye donkey. Thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. You're welcome back on the program in the future if you'd like to come back on. And I don't know if you want to do a push towards the end there. That last weekend, I'll probably be streaming all day long, talking to candidates and talking about the campaign. I don't know. You're going to be a busy man. I'm sure you've got a lot of responsibilities. But if you want to come back on, or if you got someone you highlight that you want to come on, like Demi, will come on the program later on, they're welcome to come on. I have a little challenge with my consulting responsibilities that are tying me up at the most inopportune time, the 2 weeks building up the election, but I'm still doing streams. Just means I get up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to bring South Africans coverage of their election. But thank you so much. I'm going to give you a chance for a final word. Anything you might want to share about the party or about the election that's taking place here in South Africa, the 2021 municipal elections. The floor is yours, sir. Anything you'd like to share with the audience? And I just noticed that some Western Cape folks just came into the stream. So here's your chance. I know some people I know here. Some of my colored audiences just showed up. So I'm glad to see they're here. But it's Ferlon, Christian, it's your chance to give your thoughts on the election and maybe try to get people to come to your standard.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, for the opportunity. I think it was a great chat, and it was so nice chatting to you. There's two things that's very important to me. I've mentioned it earlier, but I want to mention it again. Leadership, leadership, leadership. We need to vote for the right leaders. Leaders that is capable, the best person for the job, irrespective of color or race. The best person, we need the best person to do the job. Thirdly, it's so important to have leaders with integrity, leaders that love what they do. It's just not a job, but it's there to serve the people. That is the first point. The second point is, as a Christian party, we believe that we need God to intervene, use us as instruments, ask Him for wisdom to give us the know-how, how to solve these problems. We as human beings, we are just instruments, we are just conduits, and God will use us. And we believe the ACDP is that vehicle that God can use to restore, to build, to grow, and to unite our beautiful country. We love our country. We do not want people to leave Cape Town, leave South Africa, but stay so that we can build this beautiful country. I am very excited. I look forward the day where we can say we proudly South African again, where nobody steals, we are safe on the streets, where there's job opportunity for our youths, and most of all, where our females and children are safe. So that is just in a nutshell, Chris, that's what I want to say. Thank you very much.
No, you're very welcome. It's my distinct pleasure to have you on. And once again, Ferlon came on here very short notice. We interrupted his day, and I was up at like 3 o'clock in the morning coordinating this and another interview. So thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. And I think your words are wise, and I wish you best of luck in your campaign. By the way, when I invite you back on, it doesn't have to be 90 minutes. It can be 15 minutes if your time is short, just to give you a heads up, because this is a big commitment of your time. But anyway, so thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and put you in the waiting room and wrap up the program. Folks, there's your candidate for mayor from the African Christian Democratic Party, Ferlon Christian, from the Cape Town area. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, let me leave you with these words before we wrap up the stream. And that's what I'd like to echo what the candidate for mayor in Cape Town there from the ACDP just said. It's not about what the country can do for you as a politician. Politics is supposed to be about service to the polity, to the body politic. I like the example of Davy Crockett, who went to Congress, he served, and he did a couple terms, and he said, I've accomplished what I came here to do, represent the people of my district. I'm going home. And he went back, not a permanent political class. He went back. Of course, Davy Crockett later went to the Alamo to fight for Texas independence and died ignominiously at the Battle of the Alamo. But along with Jim Bowie and others, Travis and others. But Davy Crockett set the example. It's service. Service. It's not about your blue light escorts. It's not about your inflated salaries. It's not about your ego, your appearances in the media. It's about serving. I spent 36 and a half years in uniform, not because I was well paid, although as a colonel, I was decently paid towards the end. But most of that 36 years, I was well underpaid compared to what I can make in the private sector, and even as a colonel. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about fame, although I did have some fame at times as a consequence of military service. It was about service to the nation and to the planet. That's why I did it. That's why people do these things. Legitimate people. And it sounds like our guest this evening is talking about legitimacy and leadership. And that's what matters. It's easy to be cynical about politicians. It's easy to be cynical about results not happening. But there's a lot going on, and people need to understand that. And even if the opposition parties take control of metros in this election, you have to be fair to them and realize that they're still dealing with an inept, corrupt bureaucracy that's in place around them, and you can't simply sack everybody when you come in. So, go out, vote on the 1st of November if you're in South Africa. Hey, if you're here in the States, vote on the 2nd of November. I'll be voting. Heck, I'm standing for office as a write-in candidate for judge of elections here in my county in Pennsylvania. So be part of the process. 26 million people registered to vote. Let's get 15, 16, 17 million of those people at least to show up. That would be an awesome, impressive turnout. Don't just take the 3 days and enjoy yourself and get liquored up on your Casa Lager or your Amarula or whatever it is you enjoy. Or maybe it's, a cider. Be sober, go out on Monday, it's a public holiday, and vote. It's your moral responsibility, South Africans. My many thanks to my special featured guest today in this stream. That was, of course, Ferlon Christians from the ACDP. First ever guest from the ACDP. Thank you so much for that. Folks, thank you so much. I'll debate about whether to do a night owl stream tonight or not. I've done 3 back-to-back ones. I need a short break. I'll let you know through the Telegram group and the WhatsApp members group if I'm going to do it. If I do, it might be just a little shorter one because I've got some lawn mowing to do, even though it's nearly November. Thank you so much. I appreciate your support. on the channel. And be sure to smash the like button, folks, if you don't mind. It costs you absolutely nothing. Thanks for the super chat that came across, or super chats from Brett and others. Thank you so much for that. And hey, have a lovely day, a lovely evening. Be safe out there. And as Big Daddy Liberty says, never trust a communist. Chris Wyatt says, never trust a cadre, because they're coming for you and your money. That's it, folks. God bless and have a lovely evening, and we'll catch you here next time, either at Night Owls or the next stream tomorrow morning, as I do it earlier. Remember, I have a crazy week. I'm working during business hours here on the East Coast of the United States from 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. every day. At least I will be tied up. I will try to do a lunchtime stream from my mobile. I'll also do an early stream if possible, or interviews before I go to work. So please stick with me. And on the weekends, it'll be much more regular. Although Saturday, I will be in Washington, D.C., Landover, Maryland, to be specific, covering the USA Eagles versus the All Blacks from New Zealand live in person. I'll be there doing feeds periodically during the game, updating you on the score, and also hopefully getting some interviews with folks that are involved in that. So thanks a lot. Also be participating in All Blacks press conferences as the week goes on. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for your support, and we really do appreciate it. God bless.